This tragic story takes place on the 21st of October back in 1966. A spoil tip that had been accumulating since 1958 from mining waste that stood 111 feet high collapsed. The waste pile that had been built on the mountain slope was above the Welsh village of Aberfan, and unfortunately it had been heavily saturated with rainwater. The 140,000 cubic yards of water-saturated rock slid down the mountain in waves that reached 30 foot in height and travelled between 11 and 21 miles per hour, and when it reached the bottom of the mountain, it obliterated a primary school and a row of houses, killing 116 children and 28 adults. The sound of the avalanche was later described as something very similar to a low-flying jet or very loud thunder. As the avalanche hit the school and a row of houses, it demolished and engulfed everything and filled the classrooms with a thick mud, sludge and rubble combination, which tragically suffocated most of the children inside or simply crushed them to death. 209 students were at school that day and 109 of them sadly lost their lives, along with 5 teachers. This all happened at 9:15 AM. Apparently the children had just sat down for register. And when you hear this, you can't help but think, what if the tragedy had happened only half an hour earlier, when the children were still at home getting ready for school? A lot of lives could have been saved. And then there is also the very sad fact that at 12 o'clock that day, school would have finished for half term. And you can't help but think, if only the avalanche would have happened after 12, maybe a lot of lives could have been spared. The damage was immense, and all the locals started to help dig their way through the rubble to help find any survivors. Eventually, the men from the mines made their way down the mountain and helped instruct where to dig to avoid another collapse. When they eventually dug their way into the classrooms, it was discovered that some of the staff had died trying to protect the children, including a Nancy Williams, who I believe was a dinner lady, who succeeded in shielding 5 children from the avalanche, and they all survived. But unfortunately, Nancy was killed. Also, the headmaster was found. It would seem that he tried to shield some children with a chalkboard, but ultimately he failed. It was just too much rubble falling on top of him, and he was found in his classroom along with 34 other pupils, all dead. A chapel was used as a makeshift mortuary where most of the dead were taken. Most died of suffocation, head injuries, or being crushed. Apparently the chapel was so full, parents were only allowed in one at a time to identify the dead. Apparently on the 19th of October, 2 days before the disaster happened, a 10-year-old girl named Errol May had woken from a terrible nightmare. She told her mother that she had dreamt that she went to school only to find it was gone because something black was now covering it. Apparently later she also told her mother that she was not afraid to die, as she would soon be with Peter and June, who were 2 school friends who had died young. But that was not all. There was also other people who were writing letters saying that they had also predicted the disaster in their dreams. One lady wrote in describing her vision of children trying in vain to escape a room which was filling up with more children as they screamed in vain trying to get out. Another lady had a terrifying dream where she had a vision of a miner, then a school at the bottom of a valley, and then a child stood at the bottom of a mountain looking petrified as he looked up to the mountain to see a black mass of coal rushing towards him. And another lady was also said to have dreamt about a group of black horses running down a mountainside dragging hearses. It would seem that many people around the town of Aberfan had had these strange visions and dreams before the accident actually happened. Unfortunately, none of these dream visions made it obvious what was going to happen, and the connection was only made afterwards. Many of these visions were confirmed by either friends or family who were told about it the day before the disaster happened.